Yeah, hey Joe, thanks much. This is Rolling Down in Studio B, wishing a happy weekend to everyone out there. And what a great way to bring it in. Darrell Scott live in Studio B. Hey Darrell,
Good morning.
is it morning?
It feels like it.
Thanks for coming by.
My pleasure, man.
The new record, Long Ride Home, it's pretty good.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's been out now about 3-ish weeks or so, and it's doing really well. Maybe 4 weeks, something like that. But it's doing well, and all that stuff. And I'm traveling around, letting people know about it, and I'm really proud of it because it's basically an old country styled record. And part of what I did to help it sound that way was, first of all, pick country tunes that I had that had never put on other records, and then also to call musicians who made records in the 60s and 70s. So the piano player is Pig Robbins,
Right.
and Pig played on like everything. He's got to be the most recorded country piano player that there is. There just can't be. I can't imagine who would be in even close second. And then pedal steel player Lloyd Green. Lloyd played with Fair and Young in the late 50s, and then all the Charlie Pride records, and then later in the 70s, all the Don Williams records. So, and then Charlie McCoy on harmonica. Charlie was on everything too. So, I was one of those kids who looked at the back of albums,
Right.
to see who wrote it and who played bass and who sang and all that stuff. And so these were guys I read their credits, as a kid. And so when it came time to make kind of a record that sounded sort of like my childhood in terms of stuff that I was listening to, because my parents were Kentucky, country music listeners, hardcore. And so that I just started calling some of those people to come help me make this record.
Was it like when you sat down to play with them? What's that like? Guys are sort of your idols.
Oh, it's a thrill.
Yeah.
It's an absolute thrill. And you know what? They're just players.
Right.
They're players. They may be in their 70s or whatever, but they're still doing it big time. They just get better, and that's the thing, And we know this, independent radio thinking things like NCW or independent music listeners, like the people who listen to your station, and all the hundreds of people who roll in here playing music for you guys and all that. It's all the same kind of deal, which is authentic stuff. You don't have to put it on very much, put on the dog. And that's the way these musicians were. They just want to play, and so they were. It was great to call up these guys, and they come and do the most natural thing they do on earth, which is play music.
Yeah. It feels that way. You listen to the record, it feels. I mean, there's the photograph on the back. Is that your front porch or back porch or something?
Yeah, that's the front porch after we finished the tracking. Notice that what's down there at Pig's feet? Can you see that?
I cannot because we have a sticker on the back.
Oh, okay.
What is?
Well, it's moonshine.
Well, of course. Dennis has some at his feet right now, but don't.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
Of course it is.
So I saved it to the to the end of the session.
Is that what's in the jug that everyone in the insert? Everyone's there's
Exactly.
Tim O'Brien's taking a big clug out of the.
Exactly. So once we tracked with those guys on the back, those
Right.
4 guys. So it's Kenny Malone on drums, Dennis Crouch on upright bass, Pig Robbins, and me. That was the tracking. And then so every time I had somebody come in, Lloyd Green, Patty Griffin, Rodney Crowell, Tim O'Brien, we would pass
You made them slug down the moonshine first.
once they finished their track.
I was gonna say you got to be careful, man. You get a sloppy record.
And then send them on their way, So that became the symbol of the record, is basically some blackberry moonshine.
There you go.
Yeah, and so it popped up everywhere in
Yeah.
the record.
Awesome, and it's appropriate somehow on this Friday afternoon in a metaphorical way, right?
I wish we had some right now.
Dennis has some, man. After the
Dennis, bring it
yeah,
over.
we get there. Darrell Scott's live in Studio B. No band today, just solo. You and the guitar.
Just me, yeah.
Let's do it. What are you gonna start us off with?
Oh, let's see. Let's do this thing called "There's No Use Living for Today."
What sparked that song? Where does that song come from? Do you remember?
Well, yeah, it was, and it's a lot of these songs. Actually, they're older songs of mine. There's actually 2 songs off of this that I wrote when I was 16.
I read that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that one was probably my early 20s,
Wow.
and basically my girlfriend at the time went away for the weekend, but it felt like it was pathetic, and so it just started with that No Use Living for Today, and it was one of those old style repeat the same
Right.
first line, last line, and kind of deal. And then she came back on Sunday, of course, as planned, and everything was fine.
Yeah, it's good when it all works out, right? Yeah, I read that you were doing songs that were really old, like when you were a kid. You mentioned what's that? Were they songs you've been keeping alive all these years, or you actually went back and just totally rediscovered these tunes?
Well, I got to admit that I don't forget songs, or
Mm.
it's extremely rare for me to forget songs, and that goes for every other people's songs too, Merle Haggard songs or Johnny Cash or whatever. I just have, I guess some people say a photographic mind. I guess when they have images, for me it's songs, and I just remember these things. So I never forgot about the songs. They just never, I never found a record that seemed to be like, okay, there's the record for, a song called "The Country Boy Has Been There" that I wrote with my dad.
Yeah.
See, that's the other thing is those songs I wrote when I was 16 were written with my dad,
Right.
and it's just it never showed up. It just never seemed to fit on a record. You know what I mean? And it's funny. So when I sat down and really saw that I had, a whole bunch of old country styled songs, it seemed like to me. Um, and then I knew how to do the record, which was call up musicians who played on records when in the 60s. Uh, and then it fits together. Then I know I have a project on my hands. Then I know it's like, okay, I can do a record like that and cast it with the musicians, and then that's that. So that seems to be how I work. I kind of work within the record itself. Like for example, the Tim O'Brien record, the record we made, Real Time, was really Tim and I sat out to try to make a field recording, in essence, because a lot of the time when Tim and I had been driving around the country, we're listening to old field recordings of folk stuff or bluegrass or mountain stuff, and we wanted a record like, why can't modern records sound like, the 30s. So we tried to do that with Real Time. So I usually have some kind of overall idea for a record, almost by sound or by subject matter. And so this one was basically, old country music like I grew up on. And picking songs that would kind of hold up to that.
The Long Ride Home is the title. I wondered, I mean, looking back to that classic country sound, but also kind of to your childhood too. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
The two come together.
Yeah, completely. Because there couldn't have been bigger country music fans than my mom and dad.
Yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't exist. I mean, I've even said, that there are families who grow up in the Opry. We couldn't have been no more into country music had we been, members of the Opry or something. It just both my mom and dad. And my dad's taste in country music kind of leaned toward, the sort of bravado men, Merle Haggards and, Hank Williams and Johnny Cash. And my mom was more, the good-looking men like Marty Robbins and, Farron Young, Conway Twitty. But she also, loved Tammy Wynette and Loretta Lynn. So between the two of them, I got a really good mix of country music.
Do I dare ask the question, where are you now? You got the bravado man and the good-looking man. What happened with you?
I don't know. I guess hippie man. Because I kind of, yeah, it's something different. But yeah, I'm a sponge. I just absorb all sorts of music and stuff, and so I guess I've hit on a lot of different things. Someone brought in a picture of 1996 when I played with Sam Bush. I played with Sam for 2 years in the Sam Bush band. So there was an old picture in there from Green Acres.
Oh gosh, disreputable place down the road.
Yeah. But see, things like that, like Newgrass, man, I was crazy about Newgrass. And so I had a Newgrass period, which introduced me, of course, to, the Jerry Douglas folks or the Tony Rice, and I branched, you know what I mean? I just started following that stuff. Yeah. Or things like Old and in the Way. I mean, it didn't get any better than that, or John Hartford. But I wouldn't have gone there had I not been introduced to Newgrass, And how I got to Newgrass was through an Emmylou Harris record called Roses in the Snow. Because it was kind of Emmy doing bluegrass back at, a peak of her career, and so then I'm, reading those credits again, as I always did, who played this, who, sang that. And so then I just start branching out, and that's, I don't know how folks do it these days, but that's how I did it, back on records, reading credits and stuff. And then, find some new great artist, like Newgrass Revival, because, I guess I chased it through Boone Creek or something, who had played, because Jerry Douglas had played on the Emmy record. So, you know what I mean? It just all cross-pollinates, and then you just start discovering all this really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like WNCW.
Hey, it's like
I
a
mean,
who's
how
who
much-
of our playlist. You're just
Yeah,
going through there,
exactly. I
so-
mean, how much more diverse can a radio station be than what you guys are doing?
Yeah. Yeah, and we got the crown jewel here today, Darrell Scott, live in Studio
Oh,
V.
man.
The show is tonight at the Grey Eagle in Asheville. And then I want to mention you have a date coming up in April, April 1st at McGlone Theater over in Charlotte as well. So people can mark their calendars down the road.
I'm looking forward to that one, too. I played that theater, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years ago, and they have one of the best pianos I ever
Cool.
sat at. And yeah, I look forward to that show. It's like a theater kind of performance or whatever space, but with this killer, grand piano out there. So
do you take your guitar songs over to the piano when you have a good piano to play? They turn into
Absolutely.
piano songs.
absolutely.
Does that change how you sing them, what they mean to you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because to me, every time I sing or play is a new time for that song. I'm not interested whatsoever in like aping something I already did or a performance or, you know what I mean? I just kind of, because I don't have everything I used to have. Like, let's say a voice. Depending on how much I drank last night or how much I slept.
The moonshine.
Or yeah, all that. I mean, it'll affect my singing today. So I have to adjust like right now to what I have right now, and
Bob Dylan used to improvise his lyrics and change them up. Do you ever play with that, or do you keep them?
the song remains the same. I don't mess with the songs. I mess with the form or the interpretation, but it's like the songs don't want or need it. Maybe that's a new place for me to go one of these days. It's like, mindfully screwing up my song.
Yeah, I'll sabotage my song tonight.
Yeah, I'll show me. But
But not tonight, folks. Don't despair. Tonight it's going to be good, right, Darrell?
I'm hoping so. I'll bring whatever I got. I always do. I always just kind of give whatever I have at any time.
It was really interesting what you're saying about you have this story in your mind that helps you frame the story, the song. Does it work that way, or you like sort of have characters for each song or a scenario?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes it's whatever kind of helps the song get started. Sometimes my friend Guy Clark calls them tricks, tricks that we play on ourselves as writers in order to get something started. So another trick is like, play an instrument you don't often play. So I'll grab, I don't know, a mandolin that I don't, that I don't play so often, and see what kind of song comes out of that. Or other tricks. Let's see, sometimes I'll put on a Bob Dylan record like Street Legal. And then if something's stirring, I turn off Bob and then see what's stirring. So just things that kind of trick yourself into writing as opposed to, not writing, I guess. And I don't do it too often in terms of, I court the muse, for sure. But sometimes courting the muse means staying away from the muse and letting there be some space so that when the muse is calling for you to write on something, then you know the difference, and then you pay attention.
So how many songs do you write? How many songs do you start and not finish? How often do you write a song?
Well, the only thing I can say to that is I've gone 9 months without writing, and then I've written 2 songs in one day a few times. So somewhere in there so far is my time scheme. The key is to not get worried about it when you're not writing, because otherwise, I mean, it's not going to help to be worried. I mean, you're not only not writing, you're also worrying, on top of not writing.
Have you had that day where you went, my gosh, what if I can't do it anymore?
Yeah, more so, years ago, like 20 years ago or 30 years ago or something, before I figured out that it, like, in a certain way, it doesn't matter if I ever write again. I mean, I hope I will. But there's also, you almost have to act, at least I do, to where that might have been it. I don't know why I'm wired that way, but I kind of am. And I think what it is to not take it for granted, like, oh, it's always going to be there. What if it's not,
But don't worry.
But don't worry, because there's plenty of other things to do,
Right.
or even other ways to be creative, painting, clay, or whatever, you know what I mean, or poetry, or who knows, you know?
You studied literature, I know.
Uh-huh.
Is that, do you still you read a lot? Is that part of the inspiration?
Sometimes that's another one of the tricks,
Mhm.
you know, to be inspired by somebody else's work, either, you know, a book or film or theater, you know, to be inspired by something else, wherever the source is coming from, it doesn't matter. But I don't read as much as I would like to. You know, it's funny. I did, you know, get an English degree and all that, and read a lot in college. But I find myself not reading that much these days. But I also think it goes in periods. I've noticed that, you know, probably in maybe 6 months from now, you know, I'll have 3 or 4 things going at once, book-wise or something. So again, the thing is just I'm finding is just not be worried about it. You know, even about, oh gosh, I'm not reading. Um, you know, there seems to be some kind of other order to the chaos that I can't quite figure out other than to not be worried about it. Because worrying doesn't help, basically. Worrying about not writing songs doesn't make you write better songs. If it did, I'd probably worry a lot.
Indeed, I'm worried right now.
Yeah.
What's coming up on the big shows, big things you're looking forward to in the next few months?
Let's see. I think I have a set at Merle Fest, which Merle Fest hasn't hired me for several years now. But as long as I'm with somebody like, you know, Robert Plant, it's okay, you know. But as far as having my own set, you know what I'm talking about over there, don't you? But I'm sneaking in again
With the
a
band?
set. No, well, with John Cowan and Pat Simmons from the Doobie Brothers. So we're supposed to do a set at Merle Fest.
Yeah.
I still can't get my own set there, but I am going to sneak in there with Pat. You know, carrying Pat's guitar.
Right, the guitar tech. So many people have done your songs. I mean, you have so many famous songs that are big, huge country hits and stuff like that. I might have asked you this before. Maybe you get tired of being asked, but what is it like, this thing that you bled over and sweated over and labored over, and someone takes it and makes it into kind of like their thing? How is that?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I love it. Because I'm a believer that songs have a life of their own, you know. So the songwriter has, you know, an opportunity to shape it, I guess, while they're writing it, you know. But once it's written, like, what are you going to do, you know? Except loose it out into the world, however that is possible, either on, like, my own records, or I live in Nashville where they pitch songs sometimes, and, you know, somebody with a record deal will do your song.
Right.
And sometimes it runs up the chart and all that kind of stuff, and makes a lot of money, or, you know, draws a lot of attention. But that's completely out of my control. I mean, I'm sitting at home while all that machinery is kind of working, or not working sometimes too, you know. You can get, you know, hear that somebody's cut one of your songs and it's not going to go, that the business portion isn't working for it. So the songs have a life of their own, so I just kind of leave them to that. And whatever they do to them, arrangement-wise or instrumentation, of course, that has nothing to do with me whatsoever.
You don't ever like hear one and go, "Oh my gosh, what have they done?" Has that ever happened?
Oh, I think maybe early on, maybe like 20 years ago, but no, not really. I mean, because I just know that I will do my song differently. I mean, tomorrow night, I promise you. Like if there's a piano, I will probably sit at the piano and play, You'll Never Leave Harlan live, because there's a great piano there. So if I don't feel slave to my own songs or arrangements, why should I think, somebody else is supposed to, or to stick to my arrangement or anything like that. So I don't do that. I'm just appreciative when somebody wants to sing my songs or whatever, because in most cases, I didn't really write it for somebody else to sing it. I kind of wrote it for me to sing it. And that's why they show up on my records first, is because I literally am making them for me. And I'm writing them because that's what I want to say. And it surprises me when somebody else wants to say that, And a case in point, there may not be a more personal song I've written than You'll Never Leave Harlan Alive. I mentioned my grandmother and the mountain that my great-grandfather walked over to date her. I mean, I'm mentioning family history in there, and why would Patty Loveless and Kathy Mattea and Brad Paisley, how would they come into a song that I know to be so personal? But they have. So it's a mystery to me. I don't know. I feel what I'm supposed to do is write what I feel like writing. Um, and if all it does is show up on my record, hey, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. That's what it's supposed to be doing. And then if somebody else records it, that's a surprise and a bonus to me. Never would have planned that one. And that's why, to me, I really do try to make it, when I sing or play, like I haven't done it 1,000 times, you know. Otherwise, it'll sound like I'm just phoning it in, and I don't really want to do that. So I kind of almost relive it while I'm singing it or playing it. And that's just, among other things, it's more enjoyable to do that. And then I'm in discovery. You know, while I'm singing it, it's like about something about the song I never may have known before. So it's kind of it's kind of like that. Yeah, on a good day.
Sounds like a good day to me today. I don't know. Yes, everyone? Sounding good. I'm looking at the cover to Long Ride Home, and there's this little snippet of a kid sitting on a bridge staring into my eyes. Who is that kid?
Oh, that's me at about 8 or 9. Can't figure out which year it is. I bet it's probably 8. And my family's from Kentucky, and we moved up to the Great White North, basically for jobs, is what my family did. And so we didn't really take our first vacation until I was 6. And but once we did, it was always to Nashville, Tennessee, to the Grand Ole Opry, basically. And so this is on the way. This is near Bowling Green, Kentucky, on the Green River.
It's a great photograph.
I think so too.
Kind of trail of light reflecting on the river off.
I know. It's odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
That it would have all that kind of, it would be that perfect almost. And so when I started putting this album together, knowing that it was, embracing the country music that I grew up on, and that I was, some of these songs from literally 16 years old and all that, and then I ran across this photo. It's like, well, that's got to be the photo, because it just seems, just very appropriate to the Long Ride Home. And the other thing, when you grow up with 4 brothers, you don't get many photos alone.
That's the only one, huh?
Yeah, I can count 3 maybe photos of my whole childhood, where there's not a brother or a cousin or somebody in there with you. So it even stands out even as that. So yeah, once I found that photo, I knew that was the one.
It's really a compelling image, and the more you look at it, the more it just ties together the music, the visual imagery.
Yeah, it's funny how that works sometimes.
Yeah, it is. I guess you thought of that, didn't you?
Well, I was hoping for that. It's funny, things come together on their own. It's like songs sometimes. I mean, we can be as smart as we think we can be, but there's this other thing that kicks in that's, so to speak, smarter, this creative thing, wherever that's coming from. And even the title, Long Ride Home, I didn't know what the title of this record was, but one time I was driving around Nashville listening to it. I was on my way actually out to the woods to walk around, and then I heard the last verse to one of the songs on here, Candle for a Cowboy. The last verse ends with the cowboy makes a comment at the end just before the last chorus saying, "Either way I go, it's going to be a long ride home." And then I never knew it, but theirs was the title. I knew it as soon as I heard it, and I've only heard it, probably 200 times at that point, because I was working on the record. But it's funny how something will just hit you at the right time, and then that's the way you're supposed to go. And that's the way, that title, then I knew Long Ride Home, it was perfect for this record. And same with, coming up with a photograph like that, and then it's just like, that's the right one, so you don't have to, think about it anymore, and just put it together. And so to me, again, the whole creative process is that way. It's kind of full of surprises. And anytime I try to sort of dictate creativity, it's never as good as when it just kind of flows on its own. I don't know why or how or where, but that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah. Well, I hope it keeps coming, because it sure is some great music, Darrell. And
thank you, man.
And all these songs you can find on the new CD, which is called Long Ride Home.
Long Ride Home.
It's awesome, man.
Thank you, Roland.
Thanks.
Thank you,
I hope you can come again. Thank you so much.
I will.
It's a huge gift to give to our listeners, this music today. So
oh,
thanks.
Great, man. Thank you.
All right. And happy weekend, folks. It's WNCW. We get to a tune from the Derek Trucks Band. Thanks again, Darrell Scott.